Jack. It's straight from the captain. You'll take your assignments or you'll take a hike.
We were on a roll. We were producing a lot of movies. Debbie Dion read a writing sample that Danny Bilson, Paul DeMeo wrote. She loved the script, the material, and I'm not exactly sure how we all went from that to writing the script to Trancers, but we did.
Our second movie at Empire came from an existing script, and I remember the writer's name was Alan Adler,
right,
who I think we met once back in the day. He was one of Charlie's earlier writers, I think.
Right.
And I don't remember if it was called Trancers. I don't, but I do remember that Jack Death was called Jack Farragut the Rat Catcher.
Right.
That I remember.
The original idea of Trancers was a time travel piece that Charlie had in his head about a time traveling cop.
We took the script and we read it and then we put it aside and we created our own version of Trancers.
I think the only thing that we kept was the idea that he was a cop from the future who came back to the past and was chasing a villain.
I think the ancestor thing was in there, that he
It was. The time travel through an ancestor was in there.
Yeah, I think that was in the original.
We liked that idea. We kept that because we thought that was pretty cool, and we played, obviously, with that a lot.
Raines will administer the transfer, sir.
You'll be in charge of my bones when I'm gone?
Don't worry, Jack. I don't hold a grudge.
I still think it's one of the most credible time travel sort of inventions, you know. I mean, people get into a machine and traveling back in time, and we've seen that forever, but the idea of someone being able to inhabit the consciousness of an ancestor is pretty cool.
I think the villain was in there. He may even have been called Whistler, but he had a completely different characterization and function. But all the other characters we created, like
well, Jack Death and
Jack
Lena
Death
and
Nolte
Hap Ashby and Nolte,
yeah,
and all that, or McNulty.
The whole idea, the whole notion from the beginning, the way we talked about it with Danny and Paul, the way Thomerson was pulled in, because he loved the film noir deal, was let's make it, you know, let's put a nice film noir spin on this film.
We, three of us, said, why don't we make this guy a hard-boiled 40s, 50s, trench coat wearing, cigarette smoking detective a la Raymond Chandler, Sam Spade.
You know, we love that stuff and that old detective stuff. There's even a line in Trancers that's from The Lady in the Lake, from the movie, the Robert Montgomery Lady in the Lake, where he says, I like your tan, it's very Christmassy.
Nice tan. It's very Christmassy.
Yeah, well, thanks.
And that's totally from,
well,
that's from Marlowe.
He was Bogart from the future. That was always our
And Tim got
take on
that.
it.
You know, he still is the perfect blend of, you know, a good-looking leading man who has a great amount of talent and a wonderful sense of humor. I mean, of all the leading men that I can think of in the last 30, 40 years, had Tim gotten the right break, because a lot of it is just where you are and timing, and this is a weird business, I mean, he would have been a top star. He just has that charisma.
And as soon as I put the trench coat on and slicked my hair back, that was the guy. You know, and smoked on the cigarette and just sort of like, well, listen, you just, the costume really fed me in that slick back hair deal.
Do you know where Cahunja Boulevard is?
A what?
C-A-H-U...
Cahuenga. It's 10 minutes from here. Come on, quit screwing around. You promised you'd get me to work on time.
My father, Albert Band, was a good friend of Gordon Hunt. Gordon Hunt was Helen's father. And I'm not sure if I met Helen because of that connection, or she just came in and read, just as actors come in and read. I don't remember, but I knew there was that sort of family connection.
I had worked with Hunt, Helen Hunt, on a television series called The Two of Us, which was a silly comedy on CBS that Peter Cook was the star of, and Helen was like 16 years old back then. She was a child actress. So she came in and read for it. And I said, you know, this girl's really good. I said, she's funny, she's cute, she gets it, and she's hip.
What are you doing?
Dry hairs for squids. Let's get out of here.
Seemed like kind of an okay guy last night.
She was supposed to be like a
Punk rocker type chick who hangs out in Chinatown and goes to the clubs and
You know, I wouldn't say
Los
that Helen
Angeles.
was sort of the punkette that we imagined, but she's a really good actress and the best, absolutely, who read for it. And she was fantastic in the part. And I think we adjusted our expectations of the character's sort of culture, if you will, to fit her more than what the original idea was.
Jerry, I asked you to leave me alone, okay?
Well, you still got some of my tapes, man.
I'll drop them off at your mom's.
Beat it, Hiawatha. This is my dance.
She's so not typical. You know, you can't compare her to anyone else. Almost every other actor or actress, just talking about actresses now, you know, you can pretty much say, well, they kind of fit into this mold or that mold, or she kind of looks like her, or she's a young version of blah. I mean, you can always, there's no one who looks like Helen.
But she played really well off Tim and got the humor of the character really well, and
Yes.
the scenes between the two of them are
Well, that's what makes the movie.
are some of the best scenes in the film, really.
Look, you're not my prisoner. You don't have to stick around, but I'd appreciate you waiting for me.
Relax, Phil.
Jack, Phil stepped out.
I think Helen was very unique that way, and sexy in her own fun way, and played a great, you know, a great young hot chick for Thomerson.
Not so fast.
I'm not in the mood, McNulty.
And I'm not in the mood for troopers who dodge their assignments.
Subtle pad duties for squids. I ain't got the time.
Transfer hunting's on a bounce, and you know it!
One of the great fun things about doing Transfer was working with Art LaFleur, who I consequently ended up working a lot. We worked around the world together. We did Air America in Thailand. We went to Rome and did Zone Troopers. So I spent a lot of time and work with Art, and Art was great as that character McNulty because he got it. You know, he really got what that was all about, and he's also one of the great character actors that we have out there.
Don't pull me out now. I'm close to finding Ashby.
The only thing you were close to was that cotton candy.
That cotton candy is my lead, pal. She's going to take me right to Ashby.
Tim and Biff grew up together in San Diego, so Biff wound up being one of the players in some of these movies because of his relationship with Tim. He lived down the street, and he was another stand-up comic back in the day.
Well, I remember Tim saying when he read the script, he says, "You got to see this guy Biff Maynard to play Hap."
Right.
And when he came in and read, he was just hilarious.
He's
because,
funny.
Yeah.
You know, back in the 30s and 40s, you know, whatever, I mean, even I don't know, Casablanca, I mean, you know, there were wonderful characters who were memorable, who were at that time known as these character actors, you know, whether it was Sidney Greenstreet or Peter Lorre. So that was the thought, and I think we did a good job in casting actors who you know, made that work.
And I wanted to, really important, I learned something in those casting sessions from Charlie that I never forgot and was really important. And Charlie said, if one guy who has one line is bad, it'll ruin your movie. And I remember he taught us that back then in our first gig, and that was absolutely true, and it is true going on. It's, you know, one person can be a showstopper, even if they just are the bellboy.
Aside from things having to be cut because of production budgets, pretty much what we wrote was what got made, which was pretty cool. I mean, they were moving so fast. There wasn't time to waste 2 years messing around with a script. It was pretty much, you know, we'd write it and go make it.
We shot it in downtown LA during the Olympics, and the traffic wasn't crazy. Certainly not like it is today, nowadays, in 2013. It's like we are living in Blade Runner out there now in California.
There was no traffic. Everybody left LA, and the shoot went really smoothly, and everybody could drive around town and get places.
But we shot in these great downtown locations that lent itself to a real noirish look.
The wonderful Mac Alberg, who was our DP, did an amazing job with very little, but still to light up, you know, a roof in Chinatown or a main street in Chinatown, it was 20, 30 people and lights and generators. It was a whole shebang.
And that whole experience was such an exciting fantasy for me, to wear a trench coat and have a .38, a young chick and a cigarette fighting bad guys. I mean, it didn't get any better than that, you know, for me at that time.
Thomerson He totally knew how to get to where he needed to go, but sometimes he needed a little guidance because he'd be a little too amped up. And I'd say, Tim, you've had like a fucking triple espresso. You've got to calm down, dude. You know, and he loves it. He goes, triple espresso. And so, you know, you got to bring him down so he's not quite so manic. And, you know, so as a director, you just try to, especially if you're working with wonderful talent, much harder if you're working with people who have a minimal amount of talent. Then you got to, it's like pulling teeth.
We did have the benefit that because he was directing, he lavished maybe a little more money on the sets and a little more money on the post-production, and he wanted it to be, you know, have a little more polish because it was his baby.
Well,
like
that was
said.
before he started that machine
Right.
in Italy, where he was just cranking them out like TV episodes.
There's a couple of stunt gags in that are pretty good. Real gags, no CGI stuff. That's another thing. And Donna Evans, the stunt girl, very famous stunt girl, takes that motor scooter and blows through that plastic, through that sugar glass window. I mean, that's a hell of a stunt to do back then.
Charlie was really having a good time, but also Charlie was on the phone, and Charlie was running around, and Charlie was Charlie. As opposed to one of the directors that was their life, and it was 100%. But I think he totally pulled off Trancers. I mean, it's on the screen.
You know, once in a while you put something together, and you know, you always hope for the best. And this is one of those moments where when the film was done, I remember, you know, as we edited the film and I looked finally at the assembly, I thought, wow, this thing really kind of works. You know, it works on, I mean, first and foremost, it was a terrific script, because, you know, nothing good could be made of, you know, material that isn't very good and not well written. So this was a terrific script, but it hung together. You know, it was, even before the music, which I think added a lot. I think we tested it first as Trancers, didn't work. Then we turned the campaign into Future Cop. We tested that. Testing meaning we went out to a small theatrical market with the trailer, with the new art, with the print ads, and not enough people showed up. And then I think we went back to Trancers and had a relatively small release, maybe a few hundred prints, and rolled them around the country, and we satisfied our P&A commitment. But we were not looking ever to make any money theatrically. It was never, I mean, we had the hopes and dreams of maybe one of these movies will actually be a hit and we'll make money theatrically. It was already a business that was, I mean, Corman had kind of gotten out of that business. He was a pioneer. You know, by the early to mid 80s, there was no money. What we had hoped to do was to create enough exposure that we satisfied our P&A commitment to the home video company, which for the most part was Vestron Video.
I'm not a sci-fi fan. Never have been. I like The Thing, but then I found myself doing these things and ultimately became to appreciate it and understand it and get it, you know.
Trancers did okay, but Trancers over the years, like so many of these films, found an audience. Whoever saw it loved it. When it came out on video, then it became a big rental item. And then, of course, we made sequels. We kept the franchise alive for many, many years.
I kind of like it here.